Hi, it's Claire again here. So hopefully you've enjoyed the first couple of videos in this series where we're making a Luna by machine, but it's very much aimed at beginners, so hopefully you found some of the tips useful. What I have done is I've gone ahead and cut out all of my pieces in the linen fabric that I'd chosen, which is going to be for my actual Luna that I'm making. But something that I did remember that I did, and I did it automatically as I was working on the pieces, but I know that I've not said anything to you about it, so I thought I'd share with you. And that is that I've put a pin. So what I've done is I've marked the right side of my fabric just by putting a pin through it, and you'll see that on all of these. And it's only a little temporary thing, because all that means is that when I put these pieces together, because obviously at the moment there's no right side or wrong side, but if I put those together and I have my pins facing each other, if I open that up you can see the two pins there facing, I know then that the same side that I'm using for the right sides are facing each other. Very simple, very easy, but it's just one of those things that if you don't know how to do it, or you don't think to do it, then you won't know. The other thing you can do is do a tailor's tack on the right side as well, and there's a little video I've got as well on my channel that will tell you how to do that, and that's just a thread marking. So if you don't want to prick yourself, or you're working with children and you're helping children do this, then it might be better to learn just how to do a quick tailor's tack, and you can just mark your fabric that way. But as I say, it's for fabric where there's no obvious right or wrong side. The other thing that I thought I could just show you quickly as well is, because that mirroring terminology is quite difficult, is just how to explain to you really. Because, and this is the best way I can, hopefully, with my pins, so hopefully my pins will be useful. So we have the pattern piece for Luna. Oh, where's she gone? Here she is. Okay, and we've cut one out. So one's exactly the same shape and size, and I've marked the right side. Now, if I'd have cut out a second pattern piece the same way, this way, can you see that my pin here, you can see the back of the pin, but not the front of the pin? And if I try to put those two wrong sides together, they just don't work. So what you have to do is, this is why you do one of your pattern pieces that way, and then for your second piece you have to turn your pattern piece that way. So you're doing the back, we'll say. So you have two that when you put the noses together and you've got your pin on the right side, you can match those together, because then we can fold those two together, match up around the outside, and then when we start sewing we'll have our two right sides together. So hopefully that's just a quick recap on mirroring, because it is a bit of a confusing term, but that's what it means basically, is that you just need to have one orientation, and as I say, we want the two faces to be the right way both wrong way, right way together, so that we can then match them up. So I hope that helps. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to cutting out Wilhelmina. But what I have realised is that the fabric that I've chosen for the ears for Wilhelmina and the feet pad is this very, very lovely cotton lawn. So it's a lovely print, and also the Liberty is a cotton lawn as well. Very strong, very tough, and very suitable for what we're doing. But if we wanted to make it just that little bit more robust, then what I'm going to actually do with mine is I'm actually going to use some fusible interfacing. And if you're a beginner, you might not be aware of what interfacing is. You buy it by the metre, so you can buy a 1/2 metre or 1/4 metre. And this is an iron-on fusible. Fusible is the thing. So think it's a bit like, it's not the same as, but it's got a glued side to it. So I was going to say it's a bit like Wonderweb, though people used to turn up the hems and iron them up, which is horrendous to think about, but some people do that. But what this is, it's got a flat shiny side, and then it's got a side on the other where it's a little bit knobbly, and that's the glue specks that are on the other side. And what happens is that when we cut out something like our foot pad for Luna, in this case Wilhelmina, and we cut those out onto our fabric, we're also going to cut out the same in the fusible interfacing as well. We'll then place one on top of the other, so the interfacing will go on top of the fabric, fabric piece we've cut out, and then I'll iron it with a medium heat iron, maybe a little bit of steam occasionally, just to give it a thing. And we'll just make sure that that interfacing doesn't peel off, because we want this to be as one piece then once it's actually held up. And what that interfacing does is it just gives a bit of stiffness and a bit of rigidity to that, to the cotton lawn, which is a lovely, lovely fabric, but it's just nice and thin. Also, the other thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to put some interfacing on the inside of the ears, both for Luna and for Wilhelmina, because we want those ears to stick up as well, don't we, and be nice and alert, really, I suppose. And so in having a little bit of interfacing inside the ears will actually give them that stiffness and make them hold their shape. And also where we tuck them into the head and then sew across, that's actually going to make sure that they then also do maintain some of that that erectness, really, for when we've sewn them. So that's the next tip that I've got for you, is to use a little bit of interfacing if your fabric is thinner. We don't need it to add any, so this fabric that we're using for the fake fur for Wilhelmina doesn't need to be interfaced at all. That's stiff enough. It's just on this fabric here where it's really nice and delicate, then we're going to use it for that. And then also just for the ears as well. So both sets of feet pads, both sets of ears, I'm going to just interface them, both of those pieces anyway, and that will then just make it more robust. So again, I'm just going to show you how I mark out on the back of the fabric, and then that will just reiterate that to you and get that all cut out, because I kind of covered it on the last one, but there were just a couple of things when I watched the video back, I wasn't sure that I'd quite covered it off enough for you, so hopefully it's a bit of a recap, and then we can move on to the next stage. So I'll just get this interface, then I'll come back to you and show you what it looks like. So let's have a go at just marking these Luna foot pads again and just see if that is any clearer for you. So let me move over here, just till I get the light quite right in order to, it seems to be reflecting. Let me turn the pad over, that might be easier for you to see. Okay, and so I'm just going to take about 1/4 inch around. I'm just using my pen just to mark on the fabric. Try using this pen actually, that's better, isn't it? It's a bit darker. So it's fine for using this kind of pen for out on the outside where we know we're not going to be anywhere near where it might be seen, but I wouldn't ever use this kind of pen on a face marking or anything like that, because it just won't come off, the ink won't come off. The Frixium pen that I was using before is specifically designed to be heat erasable, so as soon as you put your eye into it, can be a blessing and a curse if you've copied your markings over and then you forget and you go and iron it, but it does just put those markings on temporarily for you. But you do have to test your fabric, because sometimes the markings can go back, it can come back in. So if I just hold that up, hopefully you can see that there's a pen circle around the edge of there. And then what I'm going to just do then is I can just snip these out. I try and preserve as much fabric as possible, and I do save all my scraps because you never know when they might come in handy. Even the little ones I do tend to save. So again, we're just going to cut these out. And I have my interfacing cut out ready, and my iron is warming up. So once that's all done, then I'll just pop one on top of the other. Now, what I don't think I said was that the glue side goes to the wrong side. Start again, Claire. The glue side of your interfacing goes to the wrong side of your fabric piece. And I'll just demonstrate this in 1 second. So here I have got 2 pieces of interfacing. So that's the shiny side, the smooth shiny side. And this side here has got bubbles on it, which you probably won't be able to see, but I can feel. Hold them up to the camera, maybe that might show you. Little bubbles, and that's the shiny side, that's smooth side. So when you're doing this, you take, that's the right side of my fabric, because it's nice and vibrant, and that's a bit more muted. I will take the bobbly side, and I can feel it with my finger, put it on top of my pattern piece, and then I will then press it with my iron, not on my hand obviously, but on the ironing board. Take it to my ironing board and lay it down. And I often use a pressing cloth as well, because this interfacing is very fine, so you can just use a tea towel or a spare piece of fabric. Put this onto your board, put your press cloth over the top, and then just use the heat of the iron, and what it does is it just melts the glue on there and adds it onto this piece here, that just makes it then as one going forward, so it's not as two pieces. So I've cut that out for the 2 foot pads, foot pads, whichever. And then my little ear, I need just to draw 2 of these out as well. So just make sure the orientation of my fabric is right. We'll do the 2 the same. I'm just going to draw around here, leaving about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now I think I have seen somewhere that there's already seam allowance on the ear, because the ear is designed to be turned round outside the other way. So depending on how you feel about the size, feel free just to reduce these down again, or just cut them out the same size as they are if you want. I quite like big ears on my characters, because I think they do add a little bit of personality to the figure. But obviously if you're a purist and you want to keep it exactly as Sarah Peel designed, then you could leave that off. So I'm just going to cut out these now on my drawn line. Smooth out the lines where they were a little bit rough. It's worth taking your time just to get these steps right. We're not trying to rush them, are we, and get them done as quickly as possible. It's all about enjoying the process and keeping our hands occupied and our brains occupied and learning something new, which is always good fun and exciting. Okay, so now let me get my interfacing. I've got my 2 ears here. I'm going to probably just pop that on top there, can't I, and draw around it. Just roughly. Interfacing is available at most craft shops and dressmaking shops, or you'll be able to find it online. It's a readily recognised term. Use it for the inside of waistbands, and what else do I use it for? For collars as well, to reinforce collars so that they makes them stand up when I'm doing my dressmaking. So it's that kind of product. If anybody in the shop needs a little bit more help as to what exactly it is that you are asking for. So it's one onto there. And I'll just do one more, and then I'll iron those on and come back and just show you what they look like once it's ironed on. So as I say, the glue side goes to the wrong side of your fabric. Let me turn that on and trace it on the other side. Because if you think about it, you wouldn't want glue on the right side of your fabric anyway, would you? Oh, this pen's running out. I left the lid off it, I think. But just remember that the glue will stick to anything. So if your shape's a bit bigger than your fabric pieces, then you may end up with interfacing stuck onto your ironing board cover. So if you want to protect that as well, you might want to put a scrap piece of fabric down underneath your work onto your ironing board cover, just so that it doesn't actually stick to it. Now I've got a separate ironing board covers for my sewing room because I use it so much, so that will just go onto there. Okay, so bear with me 1 second while I just fuse these onto the other side of my pieces, and I'll come back to you and I'll show you what a difference that makes. So I've just finished ironing the interfacing on, and we can see that now we've got this film on the other side, and then we've got the lovely vibrant pattern on this side. And the hand has changed as well. I don't know if you can tell, but it doesn't scrunch quite as finely as the other one. So it has just given it that little bit of body that we needed. and the same on the ears as well. Now that we've got the interfacing fused onto this side of the ear, so look, see if you can see it against this other one. So that's the two right sides, and if I turn that one round, you can see it's slightly paler. It's got the interfacing on the other side, and so that again has given it a nice stiffness that will help when we then sew and then fold the ear. It'll then help it stand up by itself so much nicer, and especially when you've got all the four pieces together, it really does make them quite stiff. So again, let's get to that stage then, and I'll carry on cutting out Wilhelmina as well for out of the mock suede, and then we can then have a look and see what we do then to start sewing our characters together, and we actually get to the sewing machine and start with that. So look forward to joining me then. Take care.